welcome to another episode of Lie, Cheat, and Steal, the podcast about liars, frauds, thieves, and bullshitters. I'm your host, Pat Soroyce. So we're a bi-monthly podcast. We're dropping 2 episodes every month. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, you can find us. You like what you hear, you can get 2 more episodes every month on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/lie, cheat, and steal. We also give you access to our Discord server. That's a fun place. And you also get ad-free episodes in your stream and your feed on there. That's great. If you want to check us out on the internet, we are out there on all the socials. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Lie, Cheat, Steal Podcast. And on YouTube, you can catch full video episodes. You can catch all the great clips on the TikToks and the Instagrams. That's where we're all at. All that out of the way, I'm here with my co-host, Kath Barbadoro. Kath, how you doing?
Hi, Pat. I'm good. I was just telling you about the fucked up sandwich I just made. Butter, tomato, and anchovies. That's how I'm doing it these days.
Yeah.
It's tomato season, baby.
Yeah, I don't have time to fuck around, okay?
Yeah. Just the hits. No filler on that sandwich.
All killer, no filler, baby. Hell yeah. Dude, I get, we have a taco truck at work, and it has just been shattering the dream I had of making meal preps on Sunday. I meal prep on Sunday, and I'll have 5 lunches throughout the day. Man, it's always like, I'm like, well, I can hold off, and I can just get tacos on Monday. Then Monday night I'll come home and cook, and then I'll have Tuesday, Wednesday, and then just never. And they're making tacos and making agua frescas, but they have tortas out there. And it's funny when you start to, like, you find the person that works in the truck who you want to do it, you know, and like, it's just kind of luck of the draw. And I had, there's a young guy.
Special request.
We know you really can't. It's just so many people and they're moving so fast, and there's a bit of a language barrier that if you just want to be that asshole, it's like no. Like 2 tienes him. Can I 2 quieres him? I want it. Yeah, like, this is gonna be a problem. But this guy made one the other day. It was a al pastor torta, the al pastorta, as I've been calling it, and he got it all right, man. He just had like, the right amount of tomato and the mayo and the bread, and like, shit, it's good. I'm so happy I burn off calories at work.
Yeah, exactly. You have a very active job. You can eat as many tortas as you want.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling myself.
It has been a big change in my life that there is now a taco truck on my corner. So I don't want to give too much away about where I live, but Pat, you know how like, I have one corner, right?
Yeah, you have one corner.
And there's that bar.
Yep.
There's that bar right there. Right outside that bar is now a taco truck.
You don't even have to leave at this point. Like,
it's like maybe 100 steps from my front door. Maybe.
I love it.
So close.
City living, baby.
I tried a taco from them. So the problem is that I'm trying to track calories right now. So I'm trying not to eat outside of food I make because it's just too hard to track.
Yeah.
But I did try an al pastor. They have the trompo. So I'm like, okay, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
That's the spit that they carve it off of, and it has the pineapple on the top and everything. So I'm like, okay, I trust you. It was very good. The other thing they have that I'm really excited about is they have wheat lacoche. Have you ever had that?
No.
So wheat lacoche is it's a mushroom that grows on corn. So it's like it infects the corn kernels, and it makes the corn kernels like mushroomy.
Okay.
So it tastes a little like mushroom and a little like corn, and it's really good.
Oh, that does sound tight.
Yeah, and when I went, they were out, but like, I gotta go back and get that.
Hell yeah,
Coche quesadilla. I'm waiting for it. I'm excited.
Man, hell yeah, that's you know, that is
dangerous stuff having a taco truck that close. But so far, I've been good. I've just been testing. I haven't gone whole hog yet.
Man, well, speaking of, there's a real bad segue I can make. I'm like, speaking of various meats.
Oh, okay. I know we're going to be talking about a little bit, so that is dark. That is dark stuff.
Dark, yeah. So I want to get this up top. This episode, it's gonna be a little spooky. It's a little creepy crawly.
Halloween came early this year.
Halloween's coming early this year, baby. It is a scam story. No one is harmed physically in this, obviously. But
people who have already perhaps been harmed are further
disrespected. Yes, there we go.
I would say, yes.
Yeah, there's certain businesses you expect to be scammy in nature, and the last one you want to think about is a crematorium being running anything below board. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you got a poker game going on in the back. No, don't do that.
Yeah. It is weird because it's like, I feel like you have to if you work in sort of the funeral industry or anything like that, like you do have to treat your work with a certain solemnity and decorum and
Yeah.
like respect. But that's just hard to do full time at any job.
Yeah.
And B, like, depending on what you personally believe about death, you might just be like, this is all fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's how I feel about, like, it's like, do whatever the fuck you want with my body.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I don't get
But
very.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
About your beliefs about your.
No. I just saying, like, I myself am very practical. Where it's like I get why it makes people mad, and but at the end of the day, in my head, I'm like, it's it's all once the spark's gone, that's just bag of bones, baby. Like,
that's a meat sack. But like, that's why I wouldn't want to work in the funeral industry, is because you can't act like
you
that.
can't ever think that.
Treat it like that.
Oh, well,
anyway, very dark that's what these people were doing.
One of my best friends is a funeral director. I've brought him up several times on the show before, and so he that's the thing is like you have to be on the ball all the time. But he runs a funeral home. We're talking about a crematory in this one, which is the very much industrial side of the funeral industry.
The contractor for the funeral home.
The contractor for the funeral home.
Yeah.
And we're talking about today, this one just fell into my lap. I was looking for podcasts, and there's an excellent podcast out there. It's called Noble. And I'd highly recommend checking it out. But it is about the Tri-State Crematory in Noble, Georgia. And this one, it's an older story. It's about 22 years old. This story, and I didn't hear anything about this because the whole country was wrapped up in 9/11 when this happened.
Sure, we were a little busy.
Yeah, I had a bit going on. So this is a lot to cover. So I I'll dive right into it. But let's get in here. We're gonna go back. So this story this story starts on October of 2000. Okay. There's a man named Gerald Cook. Gerald Cook works for a propane gas company in Walker County, Georgia. That's northwest corner, very rural. Probably the biggest city around it isn't even in Georgia. It's Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is the Tri-State.
This is Appalachia.
Yeah, this is the foothills of the Appalachians. This is the northeast corner of Alabama, the northwest corner of Georgia, and the southwest corner of Tennessee.
Yeah, not a whole lot going on.
Not a whole lot, and I've done a ton of comedy shows out there.
Of the
that's the Tri-State. Yes. Okay. This is not New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York. This is not the more poppin' Tri-State. So, a man named Gerald Cook is an employee at a gas company. He is taking a delivery of propane gas out to the Tri-State Crematory in Noble, Georgia. Noble's a small, unincorporated community. No mayor, no school, probably 300 people. So he gets there. He was taking this delivery for a coworker, because the coworker was like, man, I don't know, that place just creeps me out. I don't like going out there.
Yeah.
Spooky, he was like,
stuff. Crematorium in the middle of nowhere. Sounds like the beginning of some problems.
Yeah. Well, man.
First act of a horror movie.
Yeah. So he goes out there, and he's out there. So he's like, he pulls up, and he doesn't know where the tank is. So he pulls up in his truck, and he gets out to kind of go look for it. He's kind of shouting out like, hello, hey, anybody here? And he goes around a shed, and when he walks up there, he just sees, this is starting off hot. He goes there, and he said there's a small tractor there with a front end loader, not far from debris that you might find around the building and stuff, such as wood and branches or whatever. And that little tractor, this is him quoting, he said, I could tell that it had pushed it all up into a pile. And when I looked down, I seen that there was just bones and bodies pushed up in a pile of debris.
Bro.
And the tank was not back there. So he's just he said, man, I just looked at it long enough to see that there was human body parts and feet and skin. He said, I remember one foot with skin and stuff still on it. And so he's just like, what the hell? Well, then he starts hearing somebody call his name. He hears, hey, gas man. Hey, gas man. And he turns around.
I'm like, I'm going in that pile.
Yeah. Just to go in there. Yeah, throw it on the best rigor mortis face. I'm dead.
No, I just mean hey, gas man. That's before they hit you over the head.
Yeah.
And you're joining the pile.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're. But so immediately he thinks about this. He's like, so he turns and he sees this guy. Huge dude. And this is a guy gonna become the focus of our story. It was Brent Marsh. Brent Marsh is I I think it might be the oldest son of a pretty prominent family in Noble, Georgia. It's a black family.
This is giving True Detective, by the
yeah,
way.
oh, very much so.
Yeah.
So this family is a black family their family's been there since pre-Civil War, and they are actually very prominent in the area. They own a number of businesses. They're very well respected. They're on the Kiwanis Club. They're on the Key Club. Brent himself, huge dude, 6'6", 250 pounds. He actually played college football, got a business management degree, came back home, inherited the Tri-State Crematory from his father, Ray Marsh, who by all accounts was just like a whirlwind of a man. He's like, his dad owned a sawmill and he started all these businesses. And like I said, this is Northwest Georgia and it's a black family and they were like, they are still very prominent. And they really put the Marsh family on the map. His dad
American Dream shit.
American Dream shit. Yeah. So he sees him calling him like, "Hey, gas man." And so he's like, he says, okay, immediately, I don't want him to know what I saw. So play
it cool.
So he comes around and he said he cranked his southern accent up to like 11, and he was like, "Hey man, I was just back there. I didn't see no damn gas pump anywhere." And he's like,
"Oh golly gee."
Yeah, golly gee. Like the tank's over here. And so he kept it, and he said he just made a one-sided conversation trying to say like small talk, like, "Hey boy, it's sure been cold out here." Just nervous as hell. He fills it up, he gets in his truck, and he gets the hell out of there. And he said he just drove around for like
Yeah. You probably, when you've have you ever had like something like that where like, I feel like after a breakup is the one I can think about where it's like, you go through a breakup or whatever, and then you get back in your car and like, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Like you're just driving.
Yeah.
And I feel like something like this, it's like, you're not.
Yeah.
The wheels aren't on the road. Like you're in another time and space. I'm sure that's what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. He said he drove around about a half hour. Finally, he gets back and he tells his boss. He's like, "Dude, something crazy is happening out there." But imagine what this sounds like. He goes over and he goes, "I was at a crematorium. There was bodies." And they're like, yeah, of course. No shit, there's bodies.
Right.
And
you already are like freaked out. Like,
And he's like, "No, there was like, this was crazy." So the boss says he'll tell the sheriff. And he tells the sheriff, Wilson is the guy's name. He tells Sheriff Wilson. And the sheriff figured it wasn't a crime. He said, "What else would you expect to find in a crematory but a dead body?" He thought it was a regulatory issue, And so nothing happens. So this actually wasn't Gerald Cook's first encounter with the Marsh family. It's a small place. He said that many years before the gas man ever visited Tri-State Crematory, he learned everything he cared to know about the Marsh family. He said when he was a preteen, Ray Marsh, Brent's father, came to the house. It was 1983. Gerald was 12. And Ray Marsh stopped by the cookhouse to speak to Gerald's father. He asked him if he could use a forklift that would drive outside, not just on concrete, because he had to pick somebody up and take them into the crematory because they were so large he couldn't pick them up. And he said his fear was that he was probably going to have to cut them into several pieces and burn them one at a time because it was so much fat it might catch fire, which is just what you got to deal with, I guess.
Yeah.
So he's freaked out. He's already thought the place was creepy since he was a kid because he heard this story about, a guy having to get hacked up into pieces to get burned.
Right. Yeah.
So about a year goes by. Now we're into 2001. And he's Gerald's still working for the gas company. He gets another call and they're like, "Hey man, you need to be out there doing another drop off." And he doesn't want to do it, but he eventually is like, "Okay, I'll go out there." As he's going out there, he's getting calls from the dispatch and they're like, "Hey, they want to know exactly when you're going to get there because he wants to meet you and make sure that he meets you out there." And he's like, "Yeah, I bet he does." I bet he does want to kind of head me off at the pass. So he pulls up in front of the crematory building, and next to the storage buildings that almost look like barns. Across the driveway from the stone house where Brent's parents, Clara and Ray Marsh, live, Gerald sees an old basketball hoop, a 2-foot decorative snowman, a porch swing hanging from a wooden beam. When he doesn't see anybody around, he backs his truck up to the rustic crematory building, grabs the hose, and pulls it with him and walks about 25 feet to the propane tank. Starts filling the tank. And then over to the left, he says he just looks to his left, and there's a decomposing body laying on the ground on a body board. Just chilling. He said the body is leaning on a pile of debris. He walks over to get a better view, and he said it looked like if it was a wax figure melting. It just said it was like their facial features are running together. Right.
I guess this is like pre-camera phones, huh?
This is like 2000. This would be. I would go live. I'd just be like, "Sup, y'all? Y'all are gonna believe this shit." So right then, Gerald sees Brent Marsh come out of another building. He walks up to Gerald, who turns his head and walks back to the gas tank. And they start talking. And he's like, oh, man, I'm digging a septic tank. And I had to move some stuff around. And he's like, dude, I've dug up a few septic tanks. There'd be a huge pile of dirt somewhere that you dug out of your backfill, you know? And he's like, that's not the case. So he goes back to his boss, the gas company. He's like, yo, I don't get paid enough for this shit. This is insane. I told you about this last year. It's still like a freak show out there. Like, you got to do something. So they end up, but this time he's like, you know what? I'm not going to tell the sheriff. I'm not going to worry about telling my boss. I'm going to call my aunt, who works for the FBI as a secretary or an assistant, as an assistant at the FBI.
Yeah.
So,
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Small town shit. You got to go around the sheriff.
You got to go around the sheriff. Yeah.
They're
sheriff.
always covering shit up.
Yeah.
Go to your aunt and the FBI.
He's just worried about
Mulder and Scully get on the case, right? That's how they get sent out.
He's just worried about catching the Duke boys. That's all the sheriff gives a shit about. So he calls his Aunt Faye, who works for the FBI. She calls the FBI. FBI doesn't do shit. So eventually Aunt Faye calls the EPA, and man, like you gotta love a good busybody lady who's just like, I'll figure some shit out. We'll figure this out.
Right. Some kind of agency is coming out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It might be a bureau, it might be an agency, but somebody's
getting out there. And she knows, and she's one of those things where like if you know the right bureaucratic language to speak, you know, like you can, so she calls and calls the EPA and she says, hey, I was walking my dog down by the river, which runs by Tri-State Crematory. She doesn't have a dog. There's no river. There was no walk.
Sure. Yeah.
And she said she found bones out by there. And this EPA agent who just seems like a really nice guy, the kind of guy I would want being an EPA agent.
To clean up the planet.
He wants to clean up the planet. So he tells this boy, he's like,
he wants to stop the Ghostbusters.
Clean
up the planet.
So he's like, dude, what if they're dumping formaldehyde in the river? Well, this could certainly be. And he said the thing about pollution is that it happens in one place and it pollutes another. It doesn't always happen right where it's at. So he's like, all right, so we're going to go down there. So he gets his EPA buddy. They hop in the fucking EPA mobile, I guess.
The siren on the top.
Yeah. It's just, the siren's broke, so his buddy's just laying out the window going, woo. So they get out there. And they start walking around on near the Marsh property, and they end up. So they go around and they go down by a creek bed, and he just looks down and he sees the top of what he said it looked like a rock, but not really. So he picks it up and it's a human skull. So he sees a human skull, and at this point he goes, "Okay, now at this point this has nothing to do with the EPA. We're out of our element at this point." Totally. So
it's not supposed to be in a river, but for other reasons than environment.
Yeah. The environment's fine. Just run out of there like Shaggy and Scooby, just gone. So he places a call to Walker County Sheriff and the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. I listen to so much true crime. The GBI is all over all the true crime shit I listen to. GBI agents. So they call Special Agent Greg Ramey. So Greg Ramey gets out there, and he's like, this is how small this area is. He knows the Marsh family tangentially. His sister, one of her teachers was Brent Marsh's mother, Clara Marsh, who was really involved in the school systems there, and like higher up in the school systems.
Sure.
So they get out there, and they start wandering around looking. And he tells a funny story in the podcast. He's like, man, I had just turned 40. He's like, so I kind of thought I was being punked by all the people. I thought they were going to be like, oh yeah, you got to come out here. We found some, like a dead body or whatever. And it's like, hey, old man, here's a skeleton. He said he was, yeah. And I was like, damn, your idea of a party fucking sucks, dude. So they get out there. They're looking around. He's moving around. And then they just come across a thicket. And next thing you know, they trip over a body. And they push back some things. They find a body in the woods, right?
You gotta work hard not to find a body out here.
You gotta find, girl. It's about to get like it's gonna get insane. Think of a number in your head. It's higher than that. We'll get to that.
All right.
So he places a call. So he's out there looking around, and finally they start finding bones. They start finding more stuff, and it's like, okay, this is. And then they go, hey, you got to come see this. And they call him over, and it is a cardboard box, roughly casket-sized cardboard box. And he was like, this is when I thought the punk was going to be. I thought I was going to open it up and they're going to be like, boom, gotcha. And again, very distorted view of what a birthday entails. You know? So he goes over there, he opens it up. And at this point, Brent Marsh has joined the search party. They've alerted Brent Marsh that they're looking on his property, and he's with them. They open up the box.
That's a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what's he gonna do at that point? But
yeah, I would have been in Northeast Alabama by this point.
Right. He knows what's there.
Yeah. So it's they open it up, and they find the basically partially mummified body of an older black gentleman. He's in a suit. He's just laying there, and as they're looking at him, a fucking mouse runs out from outside of this dude's clothing. Yeah. And they're just like, what the hell? So he turns to Brent, and he's like, yo, man, what's going on? And Brent's like, we've just been having some digging, and we got some stuff, and it's just been like, we've kind of had a backlog of orders and stuff with the crematorium. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to explain to me, like, you know, we need to start looking around. So at this point, there's this shed. You heard the term of Butler building? It's like a corrugated tin building. You see them on properties in Texas all the time. It's like a big ass shed. Okay. And so they're seeing this shed, and they're like, all right, Brent, we're gonna start looking everywhere, but something tells me we need to start looking in this shed. And Brent's like, all right, you know, like, and they open it up.
Suit yourself.
Yeah, and it's just bodies everywhere, stacked in no discernible fashion. And they're over there, like, you know, at one point, Greg Ramey, was that?
I know we're going to get to it, but it's like, at some point, it's easier to just do the job.
Yeah.
Like,
that's going to come
how
up.
hard is it to I know, like, cremation, it takes quite a long time, and you need to be able to get the cremation furnace, like, quite hot. Like, it isn't just burning a body and then you're done. Like, it does take considerable energy and specialized equipment, and all of that needs to be maintained and stuff. But it's like, you already have the crematorium. Like, at a certain point, you have a solution to your, oh no, we have too many bodies problem.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're not taking it. Like,
it's right there.
Anyway, I'm sure we'll get to it, but like, come on, man.
Yeah.
You can fix this.
Yeah, you have the equipment. Well, there's a bunch, man. This is really one of those things of like, you ever just let your house get too messy and you're like, I'll get around to it.
Yeah, that seems like what's going on here. Yeah, it's just like, so you start forgetting to sweep every day, and then all of a sudden,
next thing you know, you got bodies stacked up. So Greg Ramey, so they're like, okay, look, we need to start seeing some identification. We need to start seeing some documentation, some paperwork. And he goes, yeah, I got you. He goes and he comes back with a notebook and a Walmart bag full of receipts. And he's like, all right. So then at this point, and this is just creepy. I mean, it's all creepy, but Greg Ramey looks over and realizes one of these bodies is a guy who recently died, who he knows.
Oh,
an accountant by the name of Luther Mason. And so they're just like, you know, he's like, all right. So at this point, they're going around, they're counting out they're calling out bodies. He's like, all right, who's this one? He goes, that's Bill Smith. Who's this one? That's Deborah Jean. And then like at one point, he goes, who's this one? He goes, Bill Smith. He goes, you already said Bill Smith, man. He goes,
supposed to be him.
Oh, no. Well, this one's Bill Smith. He goes, okay, where does it say it on the paper? He goes, well, it's not on here. He's like, well, how do you know? He goes, well, it's in my head. He goes, well, it's clearly not, because you're messing up. You're telling us this guy's Bill Smith and he's not. And so at this point, this dude was just like, this guy, Greg Ramey, was like, man, I realized that we were about to get very busy. Like, this is going to be a whole thing. So
nasty work too.
Yeah,
knee deep in decomposing bodies.
Every time they were out there, they had to swap out like the chem suits they're working in. You can't use those twice. You can't put them in your vehicle. It's literally covered in melted human flesh. And so
thankfully they can use the fucking crematorium.
So this first day of searching, just the first day where they're just looking and shit, produces 40 bodies. 40, which is already an insane number. But
and that's just the ones that are still like recognizably bodies.
That it's gonna get that's chicken. That's chicken feed compared to what happens next. But gonna pause for a second and talk about the Marsh family. So Brent Marsh was the son of Ray and Clara Marsh. Like I said, very well-established family who'd been in the Walker County, Georgia area since pre-Civil War days. Clara worked in education. Ray Marsh was an industrious, forward-thinking man. He always had like the big idea, and he started to notice that if anybody wanted to cremate a body in Northwest Georgia, they had to drive 2 hours to Atlanta and pay exorbitant amount of money, and then not always the funeral home you use wouldn't always work with these people or whatever. So he spent thousands of dollars on a furnace and opened up the crematory that his son would later take over when he graduated from college. He named it Tri-State because Noble is in the corner of Georgia where it meets Alabama and Tennessee. So Ray Marsh's brand new crematory would burn bodies from all 3 states. So Tri-State. Ray's son, Brent, was a well-known and respected business leader in town. Huge guy, played college ball. He also had a business where he sold vaults to protect caskets, these cement vaults. And he would also sell tents for events, usually funerals. And it was called Brent's Tents. Which
nice.
Yeah. When you're right, you're
Very
right.
Very good. It's so funny because like you think about like former college athletes, if they're like famous in a particular area or something, like the thing they normally own is like a car dealership or something.
Yeah, the
like
Rager.
Send me your dead.
Yeah. Rager Dykes, the Rager Dykes Auto Group, the episode that we did, that was a former Texas Tech
just
guy.
Like very, very, very common, I feel like. But it's like, nope, funerals. We're doing funerals.
So I want to get through the search material because this is the most like just morbid stuff. That's not really the theme of the podcast. I want to get into it.
We'll do a little and then if you're not into this, you can skip ahead a few minutes and we'll get back into the scams.
Yeah. So they find bodies packed in the vaults that they create for the vaults they sell. There's bodies packed in one of those. They find an upside down pool table covered with a tarp to form a makeshift giant basket, also full of bodies. They find a hearse packed full of bodies, but in no discernible fashion. Also, I don't know.
Crammed in there like they're carpooling.
Yeah, exactly. All this was a big thing to use the carpool lane. The Marshes also ran business selling the concrete vaults. Several of those are packed full of bodies. All sorts of just metal, just storage containers full of bodies. They end up setting a grid up on the Marshes property to properly catalog the bodies that they found. And the Civic Center is set up to act as an information center for families who suspect their loved ones may have been on the property. A toll-free number is set up and fields thousands of phone calls from as far away as Canada. Brent Marsh had been running the business for 8 years at this point, but some of the bodies look like they could go back all the way to the Ray Marshall days. So there's going to be a discussion about when did this start. So Tri-State was a popular choice among funeral homes who subcontracted out their cremations. This was due to their low cost. Brent Marsh would drive to all various corners of Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee to pick up bodies to supposedly be cremated. Funeral homes charge around $1,200 to families for cremation services. Brent would pick up bodies and deliver remains for just $300.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So people were making a profit on these cremations.
Yeah.
I know the funeral industry is like, it is very expensive to do funeral services.
It really is.
And like businesses have to be profitable. I understand that, but like it is ghoulish to be gouging grieving people.
There's something a little crazy about it. Like, well, also is that up until very recent, so funeral homes make way more money off of a burial than they do off of cremation.
Yeah.
And so for a while, funerals would actively try to talk people out of cremations. And that was not a hard task, especially in the South, where cremation was viewed as weird. It just wasn't a thing the Southerners did. But a couple people started seeing, like Ray Marsh, started noticing that there was I think it was in 1970, there was something like 5% of people got cremated in the South. And by the 1980s, just 10 years later, that number was up to 25%. And so
I wonder what it is like nationally now, like what percentage
they say it's actually, I believe it's more than half, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah. Because just like it's, A, a lot of people can't afford them. B, it's like it feels like it's out of step with I feel like we've gone through like a minimalization period in our culture.
Yeah. And I feel like people don't relate to cemeteries, I think, the way they used to.
Yeah.
I feel like cemeteries are not visited very often. And like historically that was not the case. Like people used to hang out in cemeteries like way more than they do now. Like now they are not seen as like public spaces where people go.
Yeah.
So being like, I don't want to have a grave that nobody visits.
Yeah.
That's sadder than being cremated.
The cemeteries are just for like kids to smoke joints in on Halloween now, I think.
Right. They're for goths to have sex in. They're for,
Yeah, it's 60%. 60% are cremations. Thank you, Josh. You looked that up. Yep. Yeah, over half. So, but he's paying $300 and he's not getting rich off of this. In fact, as we talked about, it would have been less work to just cremate the bodies.
Just do it, dude.
Just fucking do it. So we're not going to find out why he did it because when he gets into his legal representation, basically the best client is a client that shuts the fuck up, and Brent Marsh has done that. But here's the possible reasons.
Bad for our podcast, good for his defense.
Yeah. Another selfish move by Brent. So possible mental health reasons. Now, they'll go into on the defense that the reason he inherited the business from his father was because his father's mental faculty started slipping. And they noticed that the furnace itself was not well maintained. It had a lot of holes in the exhaust port. And there's a theory that they were breathing in mercury fumes or mercury amalgams from fillings in teeth. Also, they think this was both Brent and his father could have been going through this. That was actually a huge thing the defense laid into. Also, I thought about like similar to hoarders who let their house or car get super messy or let their work pile up and they'll get to it soon someday. But regardless of why he was doing it, in the meantime, people are still receiving ashes and cremains.
And saying, these are your relatives.
These are your relatives. And it basically was just concrete and limestone is what he was giving back to these people.
That's what he was giving to people. So, I wonder how he would estimate how much to give them.
That's another thing. And it feels like, you would think, oh, he should know he runs a crematorium, but it's like maybe he doesn't because he's not fucking cremating nobody.
He's not cremating people. It's so like, I don't know. I mean, like you can pay someone to fix your furnace. You could solve this problem, but I guess you're right that it just sort of gets away from you.
And like this family owns several businesses, like I could see this as just like it would probably one of those things
work.
Where it's like, oh shit, I can make $900 today by making 3 trips out to thing. All right, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Then it's got to throw the body out, and then I'll go back to my tent business
later.
So all in all, they discover 339 bodies.
Damn.
And there's a lot of people who think that number is low.
Right. I mean, if things are like truly decomposing out there.
Yeah. How would you know? 113 are still unidentified. So
they should at least like ask everybody who got cremains from this crematorium to send in a little bit of their relative for testing to see if it's concrete and limestone.
Yeah, they did that. They did that. Okay. Yeah, and they also had people sending in DNA swabs. One woman who thought she buried her brother there. Or her husband, I'm sorry. She ended up spearheading she was a nurse. She quit her job as a nurse to go get people's DNA and help test cremains.
That's amazing.
So they know a crime had been committed, but they didn't know which one. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they didn't know what they were going to arrest Brent Marsh for. In Georgia at the time, there's no law against desecration of a corpse unless the body's already buried. So grave robbing is a crime, but there has to be a grave first.
But you can do whatever.
Yeah.
If somebody's dead, you can make them a scarecrow. Do the Nick Swartzen bit where they're suspended from wires at the funeral. As long as they don't have a grave yet.
Yeah, you can do anything. So technically, Brent never broke.
Maybe Brent knew about this loophole. He was like, they can't get me.
I think he did. It's one of those things that you probably would have had to know about. You're just like, oh shit. Yeah. It's one of those like. If you're single, you're not clearing your browser history because you're just like, fuck it.
Exactly.
like nobody's checking on me.
I always think of a friend of the show, Danny Palumbo, used to have a joke about never clearing his search history. And he would just say, that's on you now, friends and family. I think about that every time I don't clear my search history, which is all the time because I live alone and I'm single. So I'm just like, don't type in P.
Yeah. So after much discussion, the district attorney settles on a fairly banal charge of theft by deception, a charge they might use against someone who commits insurance fraud or identity theft. They basically charged Brent with lying to his customers.
That makes sense. It's like you did not provide services rendered. That is the crime that you stole people's money.
But what you can do. And so they estimate that the search and recovery of the bodies will take 8 months and millions of dollars. The FAA establishes a no-fly zone over the property to keep away the media and the public.
Yeah.
Georgia's Governor Ray Barnes at the time visits Walker County and flies over the Marsh property in a helicopter. He declares a state of emergency and then writes George W. Bush and says that the tri-state incident is, quote, of such severity and magnitude that effective response is beyond the capabilities of the state. Basically, he's like,
Wow.
feds need to step in. So
yeah, well, I mean, there is still like, I know that going through the EPA was sort of like a backdoor thing, but this is like a biohazard. Like,
yeah,
you don't know what these people died from. They're close to a creek. Like,
yeah.
state of emergency like totally makes sense to me. That's wild.
Yeah, it's like this completely upends, because also you gotta think this is gonna piss anybody off. Like, again, I'm not a spiritual person, but yeah, if I found out that like somebody like was like had made a one man stage show out of my dad's corpse, like I'd be like, wiggity what now? You know, like
Right. That's the thing is like I don't care what happens to my body. I do care about what happens to my family's body, my loved ones. I don't want their corpses disrespected, you know?
Yeah, there's a dive bar in Belton, Texas, where they got my dad doing the damn Charleston with wires.
Right.
You know, like,
actually I would be okay with.
It would actually be cool. Yeah. My dad loved to dance. He was a great dancer. So at this point, so Brent makes bond after his first arrest on Saturday. But then on Sunday, he's arrested again, this time on 11 new counts of theft by deception. Brent bonds out again. Then he's arrested yet again, a third time, on 102 new counts. So
okay, that time you're probably not getting out.
Yeah, you're not getting out.
Maybe you do, and they've just saved a couple just in case. Keep getting out.
Yeah. Like, boy, I got a whole bag full of shit over here. Yeah. So Brent obtains the services of Northwest Georgia's best lawyer, a man by the name, and this is a Hall of Fame fucking name right here, McCracken Poston is the guy's name.
A simple country lawyer. I've never heard one.
Simple country lawyer. So if you watch true crime before, this guy is all over Dateline all the time because he's known for representing town weirdos. And
nice.
Yeah. He represented a guy named Alvin Ridley, aka the Zenith Man, when he was put on trial for the murder of his wife, Virginia Ridley. Alvin was a local oddball who repaired televisions, hence the Zenith Man. Alvin's wife, Virginia, hadn't been seen in public for nearly 3 decades, and when he reported her death, authorities found her bodies in their dilapidated, roach-infested home. People assumed Alvin had murdered her, and public opinion of him went very sour very quickly. So McCracken steps in. He finds that Virginia Ridley actually had a disorder known as hypergraphia that compelled her to keep meticulous diaries for her entire life, and he broke those out in court, and it detailed a weird but happy life with Alvin. And the reason she never left the house is because she had epilepsy and she was embarrassed of having a seizure in public.
Aww,
yeah, very sad. So,
and then because he's a weirdo, when she dies, he just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, dude. Exactly. If you're weird and your wife dies, you got to keep it all above board, or that town's gonna come after you with pitchforks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just be transparent. All my weirdos out there, just be transparent. So McCracken ran for public office and made it to the Georgia House of Representatives, but a later run for Congress would see him lose and be the last Democrat to ever receive more than 30% of the vote. His district is now the domain of one Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, great. I wonder what she thinks about all this. She'd probably be like, let him do it.
Yeah. I thought this was America.
Right. She's like, why aren't you investigating the pedophiles?
Yeah. So McCracken was one of those old Southern types that like stood against racism because the Bible told him it was wrong. Whatever happened to those guys, right? Like, where are they at now?
Right? A fucking dying breed these days. Jesus.
So his grandmother forbade the use of racial slurs in her house, which is sounds, that's big talk for his part of the country and his part of the his part of the 20th century. So his grandmother forbade the use of racial slurs in her house. And this is a wild connection. When he was a young boy growing up next to a cemetery in Graysville, Georgia, he befriended a young black man who was a gravedigger. The gravedigger would let him sit and watch as he dug perfect rectangular graves by hand. If they had encountered rock, he would blast it with dynamite. So it was cool as hell. Cool. Yeah, it's a young McCracken. And the gravedigger one day let him keep an old wooden folding chair that he would hold on to for the rest of his life, and he would later use as a prop when he delivered stump speeches on campaigns in front of an old general store because he knew it drummed up feelings of Americana. And
that is some folksy shit right there. Just befriending a kindly gravedigger and getting an old wooden chair.
That is a Saturday Evening Post Norman Rockwell type shit.
Yeah.
Well, that gravedigger's name was Ray Marsh. That was Brent Marsh's father.
Whoa.
Yeah. So McCracken was like, I got to do it. So he represented Brent and told him what he expects of all good defendants. Quote, shut the fuck up. Don't talk to the media. Don't talk to the cops. Don't talk to anyone. And to Brent's credit, he never has. Aside from his initial conversation with GBI agent Greg Ramey on his own property in 2002, Brent has never said a word about his case. this whole
Good for
time.
him.
So McCracken tried to get a change of venue for the trial, but to do that, he had to articulate that his client wasn't safe in Walker County. So to do this, and this is funny, when a guy knows how the world he lives in works, I think it's something I respect and I admire greatly when I see it in people. So he made an appearance on a public access TV show, and by chance, he noticed that the camera operator was the brother of the Grand Wizard of the local Klan chapter. So he knew this because the Klan would protest all of his campaign rallies. So he started taking a few jabs at the guy, talking about, damn, where's the Klan at? You know, I got a black man on trial here. I guess the Klan ain't what it used to be. Hoping that the guy would tell his brother that the Grand Wizard that he would call to the show and threaten him. But it didn't happen. So he's like, oh, that didn't work. So later he gets home. It's just funny. He gets a call from the Klan leader who basically apologized and said he was too weak to threaten him because he was dying of cancer.
It's like, well, checkmate.
Yeah.
You are in the Klan, so I don't feel too bad. But
Yeah, but that's like the coyote called the roadrunner, like, hey, sorry, man, I can't make it in today.
It does speak to a little bit of like the pro wrestling nature of these people, where it's like, sorry, I couldn't like tussle with you. I couldn't play this game because I'm dying of cancer. But
boy, I'd threaten you and him. Trust me.
Right.
But however, once bond hearings began, it became clear they needed to do something. So McCracken and Brent ended up both having to wear bulletproof vests as they walked to and from court in early stages of the trial. One woman threw an urn at them that opened and scattered ashes, or concrete dust, one of the two, on everyone around them. One woman attempted to enter the courtroom with a sword concealed in a cane.
This is a whole town of weirdos.
Yeah, it's fucking, it's insane.
Weirdos.
So this enabled McCracken to get a jury from another county moved in for the trial. The cost of housing them and feeding them is huge, and he hoped that this would force the county to wrap it up early. You know, like, let's get the thing done. So the motives behind Brent Marsh's actions are unclear, and it would have been far less trouble to simply cremate the remains than to dump them. So during his guilty plea in court, he did this one thing he said. He goes, to those of you who came here today looking for answers, I cannot give you that. And
so wait, he did plead guilty?
He did plead guilty, yeah.
Okay.
But they had to essentially, so he made a few claims. There was a few claims made. Marsh made the claim that his cremation oven was broken, but the oven was tested and found to be in working order, although it was pretty fucked up. It was a couple guys said it was too unsafe to turn on, that they wouldn't use it in their crematorium. So several crematory operators commented at the time that even the machine had broken down. Proper maintenance would have kept the incinerator working, noting that most oven manufacturers have regular maintenance programs available. So it's kind of like he had no excuse. I think it was the mercury poisoning thing seems kind of legitimate to me. Like he's just living in a fog. Because they said he would often talk about headaches and feeling confused and delirious. But the more time he'd spend away from the property, he'd feel better. And even while he was in prison, he got 2 degrees. So
yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it's like in order for that to be a defense, the crematorium would have to be operating. And so if they're not,
if he's not burning the bodies, well, they did say that they estimate that he still burned 2/3 of the bodies that he got.
Okay, so he was okay. That makes more sense.
It does, yeah. It wasn't like he wasn't burning any of them, but there was but then again, that's based on numbers. With a lot of people, there's people who think that they ended the search prematurely to just stop the expense of it.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Initially,
that makes sense. I mean, yeah, it could totally be the mercury shit.
Yeah.
Or it could just be somebody like it's like cutting corners in a number of ways that all work together into an okay defense strategy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is also one of those things where this was his the Ray Liotta, damn it,
Henry Hill.
This was his Henry Hill moment where he was it had just been going on for so long. He's probably like, when is this gonna end? Who's gonna come in here and stop me?
Yeah.
So they tried to sentence Brent to 8,000 years in prison. Yeah.
Settle down, drama queen.
Yeah. McCracken was like, he goes, well, to combat that, he goes, oh, so 4 times the length between now and when Jesus walked the earth. And he's like, that's the language you got to use to really drill it home in Walker County. So
I like it. They should be like, it's 8,000 years, the rest of your natural life, and then we put your body behind the jail.
Yeah.
For the next 7,950 years.
Yeah. And we're gonna check. We're gonna check too. So Marsh eventually pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 12 years in prison with credit for the time he spent in custody before obtaining pretrial release on bond. He was sentenced to concurrent sentences in Georgia and Tennessee for all criminal charges related to the incident. He received a sentence of 12 years in prison as well as 75 years of probation. So basically lifelong probation.
Right. He can't do anything like this again. It is like, I get why they couldn't charge him with more, but I do feel like it's like, if you are the sole cause of a state of emergency being declared, that should be a crime.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like the same law that they should like arrest the gender reveal people on when they like start a forest fire. Or something.
Yeah. That's your actions cause a huge state of emergency.
Like, if because of you, the governor has to call the president, like you have to go to jail.
Only fair. So what happened about this in the aftermath of all this? The funeral home sued Tri-State and Marsh, eventually settling first for $36 million. Ultimately, the Marsh defendants also the Marsh defendants also settled for $3.5 million after their insured Georgia Farm Bureau agreed to pay the settlement. After heated negotiations, though, among the attorneys regarding the exact terms and conditions of the settlement failed. There was a second attempt.
Really? So second attempt.
There was a second attempt with the Marsh family agreeing to a conservation easement on the Marsh property and an uncollectible judgment against them for $80 million. It's like they were doing okay, but they don't have this money.
Did the people who got concrete and limestone get money back? Was the settlement? Did they offer them money?
It says that right now, very few. The very few of the plaintiffs have collected.
That's depressing.
Yeah, and also none of it was collectible against any of the Marsh family.
They didn't have to pay.
Yeah,
it was insurance and stuff.
Yeah, like LLC laws. Like my mom, I don't know. I told the story on the podcast before. My mom was like, "I'm looking for somebody to do the tile at my house, but every company I see is an LLC." And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I don't want limited liability. I want somebody with their whole ass on the line."
I love that.
So there was also people sued. So the funeral homes. The funeral homes, the state sued the funeral homes too for not going and looking at the place you're sending. Yeah, doing the due diligence. So there's a lot of blame.
Everybody's pointing fingers.
There was eventually the Georgia Farm Bureau settled in 2007 for $18 million. An $18 million claim, but a lot of that went to the funeral homes who felt that they got gypped. Much of the earlier settlement with the funeral homes has been paid. The Marsh family has not paid any amount to the plaintiff's class. They did take an acre of the Marsh family property and set it up as like they said a memorial, but it's like, I don't want that memorialized where my fucking great uncle was melting in a hearse. Like,
that's not where I want to think about them as like their final resting places on this like weird tract of land. But so I get what they're trying to do, but it's not really working.
Yeah. By spring 2005, all the buildings of the Tri-State property were razed. The property will remain in a trust, so it can be reserved in peace and dignity as a secluded memorial. The public does not have access to the land, and the land still remains titled in the Marsh family name. The Marsh family is big, and they run deep in that area. They are furious at Brent. They're like, dude, we really came up, you know what I'm saying? We beat a lot. We overcame a lot of shit.
We beat a lot of the odds here. And
you just kind of set us back. They're not happy with them.
It's interesting because like you think about like generational wealth. This is like the opposite of that. Like, and it goes in reverse too. It's like he has now retroactively tarnished all of these other people's livelihoods.
He's fucked everything up.
I do wonder though, like if they didn't roll so big, if they would have actually had to pay for this stuff out of their own pockets, you know, because these are all family-owned businesses. And from what you said, it sounds like they have not been directly liable for anything.
No.
And I wonder if they didn't have those connections, if they would have paid to the plaintiffs and stuff.
They definitely like, I don't know, their connections were strained because nobody even likes them anymore. But like,
well, they hate that guy, but they still might be on the hook if their names are on the titles.
Yeah, exactly. They have also there's a lot of local speculation. There's all sorts of message boards and stuff where it's like, what did Ray and Clara know? What did they not know? You know, because it seems like, how do you not? They lived on the property where all of the fucking bodies were.
It's gotta be stinky.
Yeah,
It's gotta be stinky.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, I guess you would assume a place that processes dead bodies would be a little stinky anyway.
Yeah.
But like, that's 300 bodies is a different smell.
He's like, oh, Mom,
You know?
I've just been farting. I've just been like, all your damn cooking is so good, I keep farting. That's how you keep it under wraps. But yeah, a lot of the family members involved feel the search of the Marsh property was ended prematurely to cut costs, and that there are still plenty of bodies left that were never discovered. I second that motion. I think
there's no way they got them all.
Yeah. Brent Marsh was released from prison in 2016 after serving his full 12-year sentence. So
I wonder if he voted for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Although I guess he can't. He's probably a felon.
Yeah, I would imagine probably a felon. But yeah, that is just the insane, gruesome story of the Tri-State Crematory. There has been
nasty stuff.
Nasty stuff. I've seen stories of funeral homes where they were selling the body parts to like universities, stuff like that. This one was just like sheer laziness.
Some freak shit.
Yeah. But yeah,
damn, dude. Wild stuff.
That's the story, guys. Worth it? No, not at all. Just burn the bodies. You have.
I feel like every once in a while we do one where it's like, the scam is harder than doing things the right way.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of those where it's like, just do it the regular way and you wouldn't be in this mess.
Yeah,
man.
I think the pigeon Ponzi scheme seemed harder than just breeding pigeons.
Yep. A lot of the tech ones.
Yeah.
Like, just do it the right way. You'll be fine.
Do it the right way. Certainly don't. If you have a crematorium, just keep things above board. You know, like that's why I don't know how else to say it. But Kath, do you have anything for us? You got anything for to let listeners know about?
I'm not sure when this is coming out, but follow me on @Kath Barbadoro on social media. I accidentally deleted my Twitter account and lost all my followers, so now I'm trying to slowly rebuild.
Oh, word.
So follow me there, and then I'm on @Kath_Barbadoro on TikTok as well. So follow me there.
Hell yeah, guys. Like I said, we are on all the socials at Lie, Cheat, Steal Podcast, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. On YouTube, you get full episodes of video. We have the clips elsewhere. You guys can go to our Patreon if you like what you hear. Patreon.com/Lie, Cheat, and Steal. Get 2 more episodes every month. Access to our Discord server and ad-free episodes. All there in your feed for you. But guys, hope you enjoyed it. I think this is going to be sometime in September, so I hope your fall is shaping up nicely. I hope you're not hiding bodies on your property. I really hope that's not happening.
Halloween is close doesn't mean you have an excuse.
Yeah. There's no excuse to be that spooky. All right, but guys, look, be safe, be smart, but above all, don't get caught.
Don't get caught. See you next time.